Hello and welcome to the Spooky Chris podcast. I am the aforementioned Spooky Chris. My name is Chris Ringler. I'm an author, very occasional filmmaker and artist and event coordinator. In general, ne'er-do-well. I am your villain of the piece, so welcome. You can find all of my blogs and reviews and the links to my shorts and links to all my books at spookychris.com. And you can find my books on Amazon. And I welcome you. So on my mind lately, as I have been kind of trying to catch up, I'm one of those, we all have, most of us, we'll say most of us have a hobby that we get, we go all in on, and we, if you're a crafter, you get lots of glue sticks or bins or just supplies. If you knit, you get lots of yarn, skein after skein of yarn. If you have a hobby and you're just all in, you tend to the collection of the hobby becomes as much of a thing as the hobby itself. It's why we, we're collectors and we have collections, and what is a collection but kind of our way to control our area, our domain, and to bring comfort to ourselves, and to, basically just kind of control something in a world that feels many times uncontrollable. And for me, I collect all manner of weird things, but movies are a big one because I've always been, since I was a kid, I've been a movie person. I would go to, I saw so many movies as in the 80s as a young kid. It's nearly breathtaking because I remember I went and saw, Cousins, I think, which with Tom Selleck and Paulina Porskova, the most random stuff I would see because I just liked to go to the movies, and I always have loved the movies. I'm sure a big part of that stems from my mother, who was a movie fan. She definitely is who got me into horror movies, because she was a horror movie fan. Though I surpassed her in my interest, she definitely lit that candle. And you kind of go back to, well, why are you this fan? Why are you a collector? Why what is your fandom? And again, I have lots of fandoms. Most of us, if you kind of have a more robust life, if you as I always was crazy to me, my father didn't have, he would insist that he all the things he just didn't like. He just would go on and on about all these things he didn't like. And the guy acted as if he didn't have hobbies, but he did. He gave me so much grief because, and it's funny because years ago, he had come to my first house and saw my collection of movies, and it was, DVDs back then. He's like, all that waste of money and this and that. And it's like, and he was talking about stuff I'd had since, and you're talking, this would have been 2012, 2013, whatever. It could have been a little earlier. But anyways, so I'd had DVDs from the 90s. So it's not like I was, I was holding on to stuff. I still have some of those from the, from when I first started buying. So, where did it come from, and what is it? And for me, movies are kind of my comfort. They are a happy place. And while it seems like, I talk mostly about horror movies because I don't feel like there's personally, there's not a lot of like, boy, that drama movie is, man, I believed so-and-so really was an old person and they were just in makeup. There's a lot to talk because there's a lot of interesting dramas. I don't know. It's funny. I recently watched The Prestige again. I picked up a 4K of it and wanted to check it out. And it's I don't know what you would call it. It's it's kind of has thriller elements. It's kind of dramatic. It's kind of sci-fi to a point. So I don't. It's one of those, which I love movies like that. That's like, it's a lot of things. What exactly is it? But I don't really know that I have a lot to say about dramas in general. Certain ones, I guess. Though like Martin Scorsese dramas and stuff, like that's been talked to death. So I don't know if I have anything to add. Like, boy, Travis Bickle, he's got him a problem. Shoo, he's loco cuckoo. I don't know that there's a real hot take for me to offer that's gonna rock any socks, as it were. So and I not that I rock socks with horror, that kind of stuff genre, but it's more of my wheelhouse. But I've always loved all kinds of movies, and would go to all anything under the sun. I remember, you think back at fond memories, and I remember our elementary school would do movies after school, for a spate. And I remember watching Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and it was just amazing. I loved it. So I watched Tron that way. Or no, wait. No, oddly enough, we watched Tron at the library. And again, I would have been on a big TV back then, so it was probably like a 28, 32-inch TV. But I loved that. I loved, movie night days were always great in school, but it was just fun. I saw Christmas Story that way at school. In elementary school. Not sure if it was elementary or middle school. I can't remember. But I was in school. So, and I come from a generation, mid-70s, where television, was still a thing, and it was a big thing, but movies were it. That was the height of entertainment, really. That was where the big stuff went. That was where, the money was put. Sitcoms and variety shows and stuff were still on when I was growing up on TV, and then cartoons and everything. So movies, were really a big part of my growing up, and they've remained that way. I mean, they're bigger now probably than they ever were, and it really is a comfort thing. I essentially spent my teen years in my bedroom. I was spoiled enough as a kid that I had a small TV in my room and got a VCR, and was able, I rented movies. Like my mom would take me, and I'd rent movies. I'd watch them upstairs after everyone went to bed, because I was renting horror movies and stuff. So I'd watch them as soon as everybody went to bed. I'd throw them in. But as I got older, I had it in my room, and I just rent a bunch of them. Back then, you could rent. It was like $2 a rental, and you could get 3 for. 4 for the cost of 3, and just all kinds of weird deals. And so you just try to power through a bunch of movies. But that's what I'd do, is I would, get pizza and just watch movies pretty much by myself. I've always been more leaning towards a loner than not. So that was kind of, me just kind of entertaining myself. When I started writing, I started getting into that more. And I hung out with friends and stuff, but I never have had an overabundance of friends. When you reach kind of when you're in my 20s, into my early 30s, I kind of hit my nadir, like where I had like a kind of a bunch of people I would see and hang out with, and I was just kind of in an art collective and just kind of very active. But I remember in my first apartment, when I wasn't seeing someone, I was by myself. Even then, like, was watching movies. I spent one New Year's Eve watching Napoleon Dynamite and Open Water, because that's just my thing. It's my comfort. It makes it kind of quiets the kind of chaos in my mind, and lets me live in another world. And I love writing. I've always loved writing. And I don't know, movies inspire me, but don't necessarily inform what I do. I mean, I'm sure anybody, if you've taken in any kind of art, you can always backtrack. I think it's lazy to say like everything's been done, everything's been written, everything's been made. Because if you're going to boil it down to the bare minimum, the very like essence, That's just like, well, every drink is water. Liquor, water. Soda pop, water. Coffee, water. Everything's water. And frankly, if you're going to do that, there's no point in living anyways, because that's you're born to die. You're going to die anyways. You're dying every day. It's that such black-hearted cynicism that even I don't have a lot of use for it. And I'm a cynical person, and I'm a pretty dark-hearted person. I just don't have a lot of use for it because it's a hard enough world before you start like adding on like weights to that rack and try to lift that with everything else on your mind and on your shoulders. It's just not worth it. So I mean, everything is kind of informed. I remember I watched Lord of the Rings movies and was like, ooh, my fantasy books really need more like a bigger like war to it, and not like a small skirmish or battle. And so that, it inspired it. But I just, like I say, I don't feel the need to like, oh, well, every idea I ever had from a movie. It's not. I watch those for escape. I don't watch them for, and really not even necessarily for inspiration, but it's hard not to be inspired. But I watch them for it's just my escape. I suffer from very serious depression, and far too occasional suicidal ideation. So it's like saying quieting the chaos, like I mean kind of like just kind of the white noise that you deal with that kind of a thing. Movies just kind of zone out and just kind of like enjoy. I was watching last night, and again, like I love so much. I grew up loving my best friend as a teenager, and I crazy about Martin Scorsese. Made a couple, 2 or 3 improv movies where we were gangsters, and I was Charlie St. Louis, and I think my friend was Johnny Brooklyn, something like that. I don't know, but so I was watching last night his shorts collection from a company called Criterion, and was just laughing at how one of his early works was a short documentary about his parents and just interviewing them, and it's very funny. His mother is just really funny, and it's just a really funny doc. And I was up late watching that last night, and I have, like I say, a very eclectic taste, because I went from that to today. I watched Land of the Dead because I hadn't seen it in a minute. But I think it's great for any of us to have kind of that release valve. And again, for me, it's movies. A lot of folks, it's music, where you can just kind of zone out, listen to music, and it takes your mind off your mind. Or even, sometimes you just want to like dig in. Like sometimes you're just like, I gotta go, the only way through to get, through it is to get through it. So I need to listen to depressing music and be depressed. I need to, do whatever I need to do to get through this. And that can be music. I mean, it could be movies too, but that can be music. And it's great because that's kind of like it circles around the idea of why do people like horror movies? Because you control it. They may be scary, they may be traumatizing, they may be depressing, but you control it. You can control, like, I'm done, or I'm gonna take a break, or whatever you want. So you control it. Whereas you turn on the news and you see a world that we've lost control of, and the people that have control of it, it's like it's like they're snake handlers trying to handle snakes they can't control. It's that person that goes in the wild and like, oh, I can live amongst the wildlife and I can be one. And you can, until the wildlife decides, like, you've forgotten what I am. You've forgotten that I am an animal, and you aren't. and then it bites you. And that's kind of where we're at in the world, is this continual brinkmanship. It's kind of like the idea of someone who's like, I'm going to keep raw dogging it, and I ain't going to get somebody pregnant because it's just like, I'm me, man. That's not going to happen. And you are playing, various types of Russian roulette, and, daring the fates. And it's dangerous. And so you can turn on a movie, you can turn on music, you can read a book, you can jump into a book, any kind of book, even for I like biographies because I want to read more about people and learn. And the biographies are a way to kind of learn. Everything is a learning experience, but that's kind of a way to I want to know more about this world. I want to know how other people think. It's this is a book about Albert Einstein. How did he think? What made him him? And it's great that we have those. We need those because we need our escapes, our healthy escapes, and everything can become unhealthy. You can just kind of delve into a fantasy world of movies, books, music, whatever, and just never kind of reappear. Just kind of stay there and not affect your own life. And that's not healthy at all. But having these things that we love, it's great. It's powerful. Again, for me, I have this. I'm trying to go through this collection of stuff I've gotten. As much as I don't like to think about it, kind of purchase my way out of grief and stuff that I've bottled up for a few years now. So I'm just trying to get through movies and try to get my mind off my mind. And that's, why they've always had that power for me is as a lonely kid. It was something I could do by myself. I would go to the movies by myself. When I've had occasion, and it's a movie my wife doesn't want to see, I've gone to the movies by myself, and I have no issue with it because you're essentially going to. I miss the days. It was fun when I was in my early 20s. And a bunch of us, even until basically before COVID and we had a kiddo, going with a bunch of people to the movies. And then before or after, ideally after, you go to a diner or something and get something to eat and you talk about it. That was amazing. I miss that so much. I have a taste of it, the tip, if you will, with a couple friends that once in a while we'll get together and just watch some stuff and we'll kind of just talk during it all. But it's not the same because we're not generally watching something and going, oh my gosh, I can't believe this was great. It's just well, that's pretty cool. So it's not the in-depth discussions from my youth. And again, I do miss it. That was a fun time to be able to do that and just kind of spend that time with friends. Bonding over something. And you could do that with music or anything, because it was great going to concerts, and then you go with someone oh my god, that was amazing, and you still can't really hear very well, so you got to let your hearing kind of come back, and you just kind of are agog with how powerful that performance was that you saw, and just how great it was, and the high of it. Any of those again that are healthy, that are amazing. We don't have that enough, and it's a shame people poo-poo the things we love, and you get that with everything. People who don't like sports talk trash about, ugh, sports are stupid, and God knows, I'm at a point right now where I'm kind of over it because I'm over what sports have become, but it's not sports are dumb and it's stupid because you're not into it. That's silliness, or whatever, My Little Pony's dumb because you're just repressed, and the silly. You're into what you're into, as far as fandoms, and the more we want to invest in disdain for that, and not invest in our passion for it, says more about us than the person that we're throwing shade at. Straight up. I would rather someone be into something I'm not into and happy than hassling me about what I'm into. And because God knows that people do that all the time, horror movies are trash, or can't believe you waste time and money on movies and this and that's. Man, we may waste money on everything around. There's very little that we need to eat. As they say, we need shelter, we need food, we need clothes, like there's little that we need as humans to kind of survive, but it's not about surviving. It's about the journey is about our internal wellness system, and getting through it. Life isn't again, like this is not like a make up anything here that isn't a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's tried and true. But life is the journey. It's not about like I need to get all the things before I die, but it's nice to have the things that you are passionate about that make you happy while you're here. Not to a degree that you put yourself in the poorhouse or your family or whatever, but to the degree that it's comfort. Ain't nothing wrong with that, man. And it's always such a bummer that there's such an angry discourse about the Marvel movies or again horror, all this genre stuff, when it's truly, I mean, I get if you're like a real deep cinema person, you're like, well, no, it's taking money away. The Marvel movies are taking money away from mid-range movies and dramas and all these kind of films. Okay, but that's not their fault. That's not the fault of the films or the fandom or anything. It's the fault of a studio. It's the fault of a studio, and studios just want to make money. If you told them, oh, you can make a drama about two people in a room talking for 3 hours and it's going to make $1 billion, they will make that movie. They just want to make money. They don't care about anything else. It's the fans that kind of hope that occasionally they care enough to do, something more interesting along the lines that we are interested in. So it's and again, that's part of fandom. Is the minutia of, well, Luke wouldn't really act that way. That's totally not how Darth Vader is. That's not what an Enterprise ship can do. Just that kind of stuff. It's the know-it-all, showy, I'm showing you how big of a fan I am kind of stuff. And everybody, if you're a fan, you've probably done it. Well, the first Foo Fighters album is the best one because it was more independent. Now they're just sellouts. Everybody kind of gets a little insufferable when they're really fanatical about something. Myself included. You get a little extra. And again, and that's part of the charm of this stuff too, is you go, oh my God, ridiculous. But you have to kind of be self-aware to go oh yeah, no, I'm being a doofus here. But yeah, so that's why I've always loved movies though, is it was my place to go, and specifically horror movies, because I loved the creativity. Slasher movies are fun to me because they're essentially whodunits with more blood. And you try to figure out who the murderer was, or you're into the special effects or the monster or the scares. There's so much to kind of delve into, the lore. I've really have been drawn because I like to write, and I have that kind of a mindset. Genre stuff is really always connected with me as well. So that's my little life with the cinema. Take it as you will. I hope you are well, my friend, wherever you are. You can find all of my stuff at spookychris.com. Go buy a book. That would be super. I've written over 20. There's probably something you like. I will talk to you sooner than later. Take care, friend.